Ready when you are, sir.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to MSP Webinars. I'm your host, Steve Taylor, and we've got a really cool topic today. Before we get started, if you like what you see on these free webinars, there's a lot more great content, resources available to members of MSP Webinars. You can join just by going to mspwebinars.com. Now, if you're watching this live on Zoom, you're going to see three buttons across the bottom of the Zoom window. There's chat, raise hand, and Q&A. If you have a question, please use the Q&A button. I'll be watching that section and asking Brian questions throughout the webinar. If you feel like the question's urgent, feel free to hit the raise hand button, and I'll do my best to interrupt and ask as quickly as possible. The chat feature is configured to let you chat with us panelists. Finally, this is being recorded and streamed live to YouTube. So if you have to take a call and miss a portion, it's okay. You'll be able to watch this later on. So today I'm joined by Brian Kelly, and Brian is the CTO and founder of Comprehensive MSP. Some people say he knows more about ConnectWise Automate than most of the tech support guys over at ConnectWise. I don't know that Brian would admit to that on a recorded webinar anyway. Brian's going to teach us about using our stack to create user-facing self-service automation. Brian, that is seriously just like a mouthful of buzzwords. What on earth do you have in store for us today, man?
Well, I just sort of came up with some words to describe it, really, but the end result here is that to begin building processes where a user can submit a request for some action to take place, and for the system to complete that action, communicate with them, fulfill and close the ticket, and you just never had to do anything with that. Like there was never any technical or administrative interaction on your part, unless of course something fails. Like if the installation fails or the thing we're doing fails, then we have a process for that, and I'll show that. But the idea is to start taking some of the tasks that are kind of lower level or repetitive or anything like that, and just make it to where the user can just request that stuff. And just have it done for them, and cut down on what you're having to do as an MSP by not doing the same thing over and over again.
Awesome.
More or less.
So let's just kind of dive in. Why don't you?
Okay. So I did a little preparation for this, and really my idea here, just to give an idea of flow, is that I want to spend a few moments talking about sort of some conceptual stuff. Then we're going to actually trigger one of these. I've actually built an automation like this. We'll trigger it for my machine that I'm actually on right now. And then we will talk about how it's built, the pieces of it, sort of watch it as it goes through what it's doing, look at the audit trail, all that stuff, and see it through to completion, and discussing how it's done along the way. So first, I think that we need to talk about kind of what automation and AI, both of which are buzzwords right now, what that really means. First off, we're not at a point where we have like true AI yet. Like there's not just a smart system that's sitting around thinking about what the universe means or anything like that. It's another tool, and it's an ability to recognize things, really, is what AI is. So what we're doing here, what we're really looking at with automation and something that seems like AI is just a clever series of integrations, systems interacting with each other, triggering each other, and a workflow that goes through those things. That is in reality what's happening. And I was driving the other day and thinking about automation in general, because I lead an exciting life. And recently I switched from Google Maps, just the king daddy of huge companies, they got it nailed down, to ways, which some people may give me trouble over. But the reason why I did it, like I thought to myself, why would I do such a thing? Why would I steer away from just the people who sort of spearheaded this thing and are clearly the biggest, clearly have the most resources? And the answer was integration. It integrated with my Spotify. It integrated with my car. So the end result that I have right now is that my car knows when I'm on the phone. It can give me directions over the phone. I can control my music. When a phone call does come in, it turns down the air conditioner a little bit so it's not so loud, and it turns down the music. And in reality, the end result is it's like there's a guy sitting over here that's like, hey, man, I see you're on the phone. I should work this out for you. But really all it is just separate systems interacting with each other to create this experience that I perceive as, well, dude, that's exactly what I needed, and really this, conceptually speaking, is no different. So, I'll jump right in. I built an automation to show today, very basic, of installing Google Chrome, a user-facing solution where people can say, you know what, I need Chrome for whatever reason, and they can request that. So I'm going to share my screen. We good? You guys can see my screen, my desktop?
Looks great.
Cool. So let's take it through the steps here. We're going to start in Desk Director. So the first thing we're going to do is, because Desk Director times out on you, let me log back in. No, maybe not. So I'm going to create a ticket, and you'll see that you've got options here. Most of these are for what we do as Comprehensive MSP. But I created a category called Automatic Installations. You got a couple options, and we're going to choose Install Google Chrome for me. It's going to say, I created this form, and I'll show you in a moment how I did that. I understand I'm triggering this automatic install. I would like to proceed. They have to answer that. Yes, let's do it. Takes a moment to submit sometimes. Cool. So now, the first thing we're going to see, we've triggered the process. And I've created some email alerts and notifications along the way. This is the first one. As soon as I trigger it, I get this email. It says, hey, you've requested automation. This is just our standard HTML template that we use for almost all of our tickets. But bear in mind that the content of this can be literally anything. You can include pictures, content, whatever you feel is appropriate. To begin the process, I felt like you've requested automation, ticket info, Google Chrome installation, next steps, sit back, our robots are warming up. I sort of branded it as like you're interacting with robots, but you can really have creative freedom to do whatever you want there. But you're going to see throughout this process that it's like our robots are warming up, they just got started, that kind of thing. So this is the first thing that happens. So let's get over here into ConnectWise Manage. So what you'll see in ConnectWise Manage is that I created a common place for this stuff to be. I created a board called User Facing Automation. And in that, I created 5 statuses: new automation request, automation success, automation failure, closed, of course, and automation in progress. I also created a type called software installs and a subtype called Google Chrome, because that is how we are with our workflow rules, are going to identify that this is a ticket for this automation and it's looking at this board. So if we go over here to the board, we can refresh and we'll see that this ticket has come in. So right now there's a problem with it, and let me point this out. I've got a workflow rule set up as a backup plan that is going to inform me that it can't proceed with this automation because a configuration is not attached to this ticket. I can manually attach that configuration, which I'm about to do, but the way you avoid having to do that is you have the desktop client version of Desk Director. I don't have that because in what we do, it's not really necessary because we don't support like individual workstations and end users, that kind of thing. But so you can avoid that process of having to go in here and attach this configuration just by having the desktop version, and it automatically attaches the config. However, if for whatever reason you don't have that, you can go in here and just add the configuration. But ConnectWise has to have a target for where this stuff is going to happen. So let's look at our workflow rules. Well, actually, let me show you where that first email came from. So associated with the new automation request status, I have exactly what you just saw, an HTML template. It's just a general, hey, robots are warming up. So this is associated with this status. When it first comes in, that's why it generates that email right away that you've requested it. Now, if we go over to our workflow rules, I have a workflow rule that triggers this process. So in here, what are we looking for? We are looking for that the type of software installs, the subtype is Google Chrome, the status is new automation request, and there is a configuration attached. I have a similar workflow rule right here that is basically the exact same thing, but it is indicating that a configuration is not attached. And that is what generated this email, which I actually had it generated earlier so I wouldn't have to wait on it. But basically, that's how we've identified, hey, we've got automation waiting, but we don't have a configuration attached to it. And in that case, I've set it up to where, you know what, send an email. That's what we saw. But in this case, now we've attached the configuration, or it came in via the desk director deal. And we're saying, again, software install, subtype is Google Chrome. It's a new automation request. There is a configuration attached. We're ready to go. So what does it do as a result of that? It triggers the install Google Chrome script. I'm going to cancel this, but it did have automation success is what we want it to set it to if the script is successful, and automation failure is what we want it to set to if for whatever reason the script has failed. And it's important for us to be able to differentiate, because obviously if it fails, then we don't want to lead the client to believe that this was successful. So I'm going to cancel that, and we're going to go ahead and activate this workflow rule. And it'll take a minute for it to trigger. But at any given time, you can see what's going on over here in the audit trail tab in a ticket. So everything we've done so far came in through desk director. I attached the configuration, and we'll begin to see some activity in just a moment. But let's talk through what will happen. So we got the trigger. So when it is triggered, the following things will happen. It's going to run the script. It is going to send an email. That email looks like this. Your installation is beginning. The robots are working. Watch for any additional prompts or additional emails. Now, the reason why I say watch for additional prompts is because one limitation you have with this is that you cannot pass variables from manage over to automate. But that does not mean that you can't get variables. In your script, you can prompt the user for information. You can, of course, look for installed software, any other set of circumstances that automate what already know about. But there is going to be a situation where you just straight up need the user to tell you something. In this case, it's not. In this case, it's pretty much a standard vanilla installation, no worries. But, there may be a situation in the future where you need some information, and you can actually work it into your script to prompt the user for that variable. So that's why I said in here, watch for any prompts, because while in this case there won't be any, there could be. We could have automate pop up and say, hey, what do you want this thing to be? And it can collect a variable to then use in the script. So that's why I indicate that. And then in addition to that, it is going to change the status of the ticket to automation in progress so that we can quickly look and see that this has triggered, it's underway, it's happening. So let's see. Okay, cool. So it has fired off. So let let me check my Gmail inbox, see if we got our email. Boom. There it is. So now I've submitted it. I've got my email. It says, hey, it's working. Robots are on it. And again, this, you can structure this notification. It can be anything you want. I'll just put together some general information stuff, but you can go as far with it as you want to. You can be as clever with it as you want to. You can, like, for instance, if you are installing something that has a guide or some instructions or like a screen cap you need to share, you can include links to that, pictures, whatever the case, whatever we need to convey in this email, you can put in here. So we'll go ahead and hop over here to automate, and we'll check on how this script is going. So I'm Brian's laptop, you might have guessed, and I created a location CMSP test. We'll go over here and look at the scripts that are in progress. Now, I'm not going to delve too deeply into the specifics of the script. Actually, it looks like we're already done. So it looks like it was successful. So my prediction is that if I minimize this, boom, Google Chrome. Now I have Google Chrome on my desktop. So when we look at it, let's look at the actual script I'm using. This is a template that are working off of a template that I put together like a year and a half ago or so. This is how I like to lay things out clearly, what's going on. I like to do a function track here and then have my functions individual here. Now, I will say that I'll include a link to this, but I actually have another video here that actually not only provides that template that I'm working off of, but explains thoroughly how to use it. So if you need some help putting together a solid, installation script, something like that, this is a great place to start. The pointers that I will give is that it's very important to have your script end correctly, because basically what Manage is looking at is, did this script succeed or did it fail? And in this case, I've got my script to where even if it's doing failure checking as it goes and even retrying steps, and it's going to the failure step, which is the appropriate thing to do. So I've taken control of the failure reporting, and so the script is still, in its eyes, successful. So that's why at the end of these, you'll see script exit with error, script exit with error. That is an important step to have in this, because if you don't fail the script out in the event that there is a failure, then Manage is going to think that the script was successful. It's going to let the user know that it was successful, and we don't want that. So it's important to have it end on the appropriate note and make sure to put an error in here so that it will be marked as failed, or else it undermines this whole process. But again, if you need more, I'm not going to go super deep into all of that right now in this webinar, but if you need more info on scripting in general, I will send out a link to that scripting video that will walk through a lot of that. But other than that, pretty standard script. So let's look at what is supposed to happen after this is successful. So we go back to our workflow rules, and we've got two options here. We've got failure, we've got success. In this case, it was successful, and what it's looking for, again, software install, Google Chrome. The status is in automation success, which is what the original workflow rule is setting the ticket to after the script is successful. So basically, it's sitting around waiting to see if what the deal is there. And when that pops up, it's going to do a couple things. It's going to send an email saying your automation is complete, and now you have Google Chrome. Let me see if that's happened yet. that process of manage reporting back that the script was successful, it can be delayed for a moment sometimes. I know I've noticed that. I would presume it's going to be something that they, look at here soon and maybe try to speed up that process. But there is sometimes like a, 5-10 minute delay for Automate to report back to manage that this has been successful. So in the event that it marks it as failed, we're looking for a few things. The automation failure status, namely, which was, if you remember in that other workflow rule, that's what we specified to change the status to in the event of a failure. So I actually will just go ahead right now and change it. I'll flip it to failed and then back to in progress, just so we can see what that failure email looks like. Let me refresh my cache. Let me just flip the ticket back. God, man, this is being slow today. So there's my user-facing automation board.
It's funny. You said manage is being slow today. One of the people here sent a little frowny face and said his ConnectWise is faster than mine. So. Oh,
really? I actually do get that for in our ConnectWise and our Automate when I demo things for people. That is something that people tend to tell us, and it's just, especially in Automate, like I stay on top of it, as far as, as far as keeping it fine-tuned, all that kind of stuff. There are things you can do to help.
I think we should have a webinar on that, Brian.
Yeah, I could probably give like an Automate server fine-tuning kind of thing. There's things you can do. Like I did some maintenance for a client just this morning where they had like several tables. There were like 7 or 8 gigs a piece and just all sorts of stuff going on. I gave it like some more IIS worker processes and gave the DB a little room to grow. By the way, this in the event of failure, this is the email I had set up to go. Oops, my robots ran into a problem, getting human on this one. And I actually have not put the workflow rule in place for this, but what I would do in this situation is that I would create a maybe I did put the workflow rule in place to make sure. Let's see where to go. Here. Okay, yeah. So in this case, what we're doing is that if it indicates that it is an automation failure, then I'm telling it to change the board over to help desk, which is what you would want to happen. So basically, if the script fails, it's saying, hey, man, ran into a problem, getting a human on this one, and it transfers it over to your help desk board so that now an actual human being can take a look at this. So it's notified the person that this needs to happen, and it's shooting it over to the help desk. And you could even set up additional notification if you wanted to like email a tech or whatever the case may be. So let's check back in on the audit trail over here. So yeah, this is this will follow up in just a minute. I think I may have actually broken the process by jacking around with the status and that kind of stuff. Normally you want to leave it alone until it reaches completion, but I did it earlier, and essentially what happens is that it changes it to automation success, and then you get the email that I mentioned earlier, which I actually can show you, which is right here. So basically it's complete. It says, hey, you know what? It's done. You now have Google Chrome. And it says, look for Google Chrome on the icon on your desktop. So like I said, this is just a general template and just some general information just to make it look nice. But, I can't stress enough that, this can be whatever you want. So suppose that it's a proprietary line of business application. They need some instructions. They need to know how to open it. Any of those kind of things, you can include all of that information here. So basically, to just make it, short and sweet, the idea is that we're, submitting the ticket, just to kind of go through the step, submitting the ticket. And actually, let me show you in Desk Director how I did all that stuff real quick. That's the one thing I haven't gone into. And, while I'm pulling this up, I mean, like this right here, this one is just a basic software installation, which, I mean, in and of itself could be a time saver if you built out a little bit of a library, but you really can take it as far as you want to. Like, I could see building out like, a sort of pre-designated, my PC's not performing very well. Can you kind of check it out and tune it up, which could do some maintenance stuff? I could see a lot of different possibilities for self-service automation. And I think that ultimately that's where everything is heading. That basically what we're going to see in the next 5 years is that tier one technician role just kind of starts to not be a thing anymore, really, because we're just, be building all of that kind of stuff out. So here's the config of Desk Director. Basically, it's two main things behind it. You've got request types, which is super easy to do. Actually, we'll create a form first. So we'll just do a new form, blank form. We're going to call it, we'll do this one. We'll call this one Java install, create, add a question, choice. I understand all that stuff we put in there. And we can change this to yes. Let's do it. So basically, I just thought it was a good idea to have some kind of required confirmation that they are triggering automation, that like something's going to happen because you're doing this. So you go back over here to request types. We can create a type. I've already got a category called automatic installations. The ticket name we'll call Java installation. And now we can associate our form that we just did, Java install. Call this Java installation. And this is the important part right over here. So we'll save that. But this ticket area over here is what's important, because here you can say, you know what? Let's go to the user-facing automation board. Let's set this new automation request. We'll say it's medium, service type software installs. I have not yet added a Java subtype, but we would want to do that. But, that's what makes Desk Director such a powerful platform is not so much what it can do on its own, which is cool. I mean, it can do some cool stuff on its own. It makes things nice and organized. But what it does, what other portal type things can do, and what you really want to look for, is that it gives you very granular control of how a ticket comes in to manage. And when you have that control, well, now you've just opened yourself up to all sorts of possibilities. You don't have that when people just email into your ticket system. It just hits the board. It's just going to do what it's going to do. So that is what makes this so powerful, and what makes Desk Director a critical component of what I'm showing you, is that we have predictability of how tickets are coming in, which we need in this instance, because if you'll remember in the workflow rules, we were very clearly looking for those items, such as type software installs, subtype Google Chrome, and then the installation was, the one was for new stuff. So it's important to have that granularity on the way in. I like Desk Director because, out of the box, you're able to do that. But I presume that there are probably other ways that you could do that as well with other platforms. Also, looking at the audit trail, we can see that the workflow rule has come back, has updated the ticket. It should be now closed. Actually, I think I broke that part with changing the status, but it's better to leave it alone until it's done doing its thing. But I was trying to expedite it. but essentially it would have changed it to closed. It would have sent that email that I showed you that says, hey, congrats, you got Google Chrome. So yeah, those are the three things. So basically, to kind of sum up how it works is you've got Desk Director, you create your request type. I like to do a form, and you plan out, okay, what am I looking for in Manage that I'm going to trigger my workflow rules off of? You set all of that stuff here. Bear in mind that you may have to create some of that stuff in Manage first, but if you do, you go to the service board setup table. You've got your board. Here are all your statuses. Here are your types. Here are your subtypes. And in this instance, I would create a subtype maybe called install Java, associate it with software installs. And now that'll be there. It takes about 20 minutes for Desk Director to sync on its own. However, you can manually trigger that process by doing this as well. So we would basically select that subtype. Then it shows up in here. After you turn it on, it shows up in Desk Director as one of the things. They can select it, and then in Manage, that's where it lands. We've got our 4 workflow rules that are dictating how this goes, which was basically the trigger workflow rule, the one that says, okay, I don't have the prerequisites I need. In this case, there's no configuration attached, so I don't know what to run it on. And then, of course, your success and your failure option. And then, of course, you want to be as thorough as you can with your actual scripting, because your script needs to know, was I successful just now? So if your script is unable to accurately say whether or not Chrome actually was just installed, then you're not going to have a reliable experience for the end user. But again, if you need some pointers on failure checking and a template like this, this template, not only does it do pretty good failure checking, but it also tries everything twice before giving up. So that's available via that YouTube video that I'll put a link to. So yeah, I mean, those are kind of the 3 components and how they hand off to each other, and it just kind of goes in and comes back out. It starts at Desk Director, hits Manage. Manage says, okay, let me look at it. What do I do? Sends it over to Automate. Automate gets done and says, hey, I did it. And then Manage says, well, hey, he did it, and takes the appropriate steps, emails the client. And if everything went successfully, then you've just fulfilled a service ticket without a person ever having to know about it. I mean, unless you have a notification or setup going on, then, I mean, you won't even know that it happened. By the way, let me go ahead and preemptively answer a question I know I'm going to get. Yes, you can add time to these tickets and you can charge for this. You would do that from the script and Automate. You would, just like when you script other stuff and add time to tickets, you would have it as a function in there. I have not built that out in this script, but that is something I'm happy to elaborate on offline, maybe outside of this, because it was a little bit more than I wanted to get into right now. But it is possible to not only automate this stuff, but bill for this stuff as well. So I know that was a lot, but I'm happy to clarify any part of that.
So Brian, I will agree that was a lot, and I'm gonna turn off the screen share here.
Okay.
Put us back to side-by-side mode. So here's kind of what I want to do. First, I just want to clarify. Brian is a ConnectWise Automate guru. So you might have questions about Autotask, SolarWinds, Ninja, or any other tool under the sun. He probably just can't answer those because my assumption is you just don't know how to use those products, Brian.
I've dabbled, but we certainly specialize in these. But what I can offer some clarity on are the mechanisms that need to be in place from any other platform. For instance, like when I said Desk Director, the thing that makes it work is that you have control over how a ticket comes into Manage. If you have another way of doing that, then it'll work just as well. It's just about getting it in there in a structured and predictable way. You could build your own new integration to do that if you needed to.
Yes. So with that said, Desk Director can be subbed out by EnviroSoft. EnviroSoft is able to give a user-facing application where they can, select what type of ticket they want, which they could select all of the choices that would deploy an application. And there is a really nice vendor deal to members of MSP Webinars for EnviroSoft. You can get up to 46% off, and that would be pricing for life as long as you sign up within the next, several months. So,
and let me clarify that we're using Desk Director. Really, all we're fundamentally doing is identifying tickets, and that can be done through type, through subtype. You can use parsing rules with emails coming in to set them certain ways. You can use the summary of the email. It's just we need something more reliable than just a user just typing out whatever it is they're going to type out and send it over a ticket. We've got to have something that is going to be reliably the same, but that could be a number of things. I just was using type and subtype because it's clean from an organizational standpoint, and you can have some umbrella workflow rules in that instance. Like, for instance, I don't have to have a workflow rule about the configuration thing not being attached for every single one. I can apply that just to the software installs type as a whole, because basically if anything is set as that, it for sure needs a configuration attached to it or it's not going to work. So it's just a structural thing, but there's a lot of different ways you could do this. It's just about identifying the ticket and knowing what that thing is when you come in.
Right. So, Desk Director, EnviroSoft, or some other way. You could even potentially do this using a form on your website with Gravity Forms, as long as you can figure out a way to identify that end user, with Gravity Forms. But this is all stuff
I can actually, what you would do in that instance. I can actually show you what you would do in the scenario that you just described. You would go. Can I grab the screen again real quick and I'll just show you?
Sure.
I don't know. Do I need to share it again?
Yep.
Yeah. So you have you can set up. Let's see, where were they at? I gotta remember. And there you go. Parsing rules. So you can do a parsing rule here, right? And if you have a form that structures it where it's like you can reliably say the first thing that's going to be there is the company name, and then reliably the thing after that is going to be the subject that indicates what the deal is, then you can create a parsing rule that will take the subject of any email, will identify the portion of it that's the company and apply it to the appropriate company, and can take the rest of it and say, oh, I know what the deal is here, and can set it for the appropriate type and subtype. So you can parse emails on the way in. A little bit more complicated to do it that way. I like Desk Director or that kind of thing better because it's just easier. But you could theoretically, from a form on your website, as long as you can predictably say what the subject of the email is going to be and what its components are, you can create a parsing rule and indicate where in that subject the company name is specified and where in that, other parts of it is specified as well. So it is doable to do it that way. It's just more complicated to do it that way.
Excellent. All right, so I'm going to lead you guys on a journey here for a few minutes. So regardless of what tools you're using, like Brian said, as long as there's a way to trigger a ticket, and as long as the ticket is able to trigger some automation somehow, then it doesn't really matter what tools you're using. That said, we don't know, can Autotask do this? Maybe. Can Datto RMM or SolarWinds and Central do this? Maybe. But what I can tell you is that, he showed you how to install Chrome, but this can be used for all sorts of really cool things. I mean, you could have, I'm sure, it would take a lot more configuration, but you could have, hey, set up my new computer, and let the robots do all that stuff where it, joins it to the domain and installs all of the line of business applications and just goes through this whole set of scripts. It can be done is really what Brian is showing you, not necessarily here it is.
Here's everything.
This can be used for installing, a line of business application or QuickBooks. If you can script it, then this can be utilized to build out that self-service automation. If you look at ConnectWise today is doing this because they're using this type of features to build out the Automate trial servers that they set up for people. So it's already in place.
Yeah. But, the fact of it is that we're discussing this right now. 5 years from now, this is already all going to be done. This is basically, people are going to start putting these things together, and it's going to be standard practice to do. Like, I think there's going to come a point where if you're an MSP and you're in a sales meeting and you don't offer some type of automation, they're going to be like, what's the deal with these folks? Like, everybody does that now. We're going to get to that point. And also, to make a point on what you said earlier about really anything being possible, the only thing to keep in mind is that, where they're scripting, there are variables, and you only have two options really natively on where you're going to get those from. One, information that Automate already has, and B, prompting the user. What you cannot yet do is take information provided in a ticket and pass that from managed to Automate as variables. I presume that feature and that functionality will exist in the future, but as of right now, you cannot do that. But you can pull variables from other places, and even if you could even say, for instance, you're going to prompt a user for certain things, you could give them screenshots of the boxes to look for to pop up on their site and say, hey, you know what? You're going to, in the next 5 minutes, you're going to see this box right here, and I need you to provide information in it. And that's the beautiful thing about the managed component, is that you have total control over what you're saying to people and how you present it to them, and you can paint a picture of, like, clearly this is what to expect with screenshots and just the whole thing.
Excellent. So for those of you watching this live on Zoom, feel free to toss in some questions. Brian and I will do our best to answer them to our fullest ability. Now, for those of you that are like, this is really cool, but I'm just not there yet with my scripting and automation abilities, Brian offers a service where he can come in and do this project for you and help you configure everything in your Automate. And then he's also got more of like an ongoing service where you just keep him on retainer and he takes care of setting everything up for you. Brian, can you elaborate on how all that would work?
Yeah, cool. Let me do a shameless plug of our services real quick. That's cool.
Sure.
Let's see. So, we, like you mentioned, there's really two primary, or I guess a few primary things that we tend to do for people. One of the most common and very earliest things that we do for just about everybody initially is this thing we call Automate Essentials. And, I'll show you just one component of it. I don't want to give all the goods away here, but basically, it's a 6-phase project. We look at the server. Is it up to speed? Do we need any migration stuff? Watcher is our monitoring system we put in because we just sort of got tired of fighting with Ignite and just did something better. And I'll actually show you a quick little thing on that. Here we go. Yeah, so what we've done is, now when it comes to monitoring, just the mystery of how do we monitor, it's after we put in Watcher, it's pretty much as simple as just coming here and just check the box next to the stuff you care about. Like, this is a location, and you say, yeah, sure, let's know about smart failures. Let's know about expired SSL certificates. Here's the thresholds on this stuff. So, with Automate Essentials, what we've done with monitoring, with patching, automating your AV, we have a staging mechanism that actually does what you described just a minute ago, Steve, of joining it to the domain, installing all the line of business applications, getting it set up, good to go. We actually have a mechanism as part of that, and any other integrations. Typically, that's the jumping off point for people to come in, because everybody, it's the 80-20 rule. 80% of people have the exact same issues monitors are flying all over the place. We get tickets. We can't rely on patching. So, our idea is to get past that stuff as quickly as possible. And sometimes we'll do that as a standalone project, but we also have an ongoing support deal. And that's where all these other things you saw in here came from. And Desk Director, like the stuff that we actually use it for. Those were just kind of demos that I set up. But if we actually look at it.
Just so you know, we're not seeing your screen.
Are you not? No, my bad. Well, let me share that out, because I sure enough just showed something I wanted you to see. Yeah, so what I showed in Automate just a second ago was I just opened up a location to demonstrate kind of the ease of use for monitoring. And like, here at the location level, like you got a couple tabs for server monitoring. You just check the box next to the stuff you care about. So, I mean, this is our answer to Ignite, of just making it easy. Like, yeah, let me know about these disk space thresholds. Sure, let's do offline servers. We're trying to knock out that 80% of stuff that everybody deals with right away. But with our ongoing thing, we do a lot more than that, where we just are constantly fixing just kind of known issues with Automate and building something to replace it. And also you can come in here and you can say, I have a monitoring issue. Let's add a new monitor. It's going to ask you all the stuff that you need. What should it be applicable to? How often should it run? What should happen when it goes off? Patching, monitoring, AV, server performance, scripting, all sorts of stuff as an ongoing service. And then, of course, we also will just do just projects for people where like we're building a application deployment system for somebody right now, where they just wanted their own proprietary system for, monitoring and managing applications and getting them out there. Probably something similar to like the Nanite solution or something like that. So we're building that. So we'll do project work as well. But, what brings most people in initially is that typically, whether you're sort of advanced down the road a little bit or whether you're new with Automate, 80% of the time people have a lot of the same issues of just monitors are insane and we can't trust patching and we aren't automating as much as we should. So, we've just put together a lot of services for, correcting those issues, that kind of thing. And typically what we'll do is, if people are interested in that, this is probably old school and probably something that I'll have to stop doing at one point, just as we get busier. But usually I'll actually meet with you myself and I'll demo all this stuff. We'll talk about where you are, where you want to go, what the cost is, all that good stuff, and see if it's a good fit. That's kind of where we're at now. Everybody's dealt with ConnectWise support and sales. They're, we're live on YouTube, so I'm not going to get too vocal about it, but we all know some of the issues there. So we try to keep it as much of a structured but personal experience at the same time as much as we can.
Awesome. And I've got to ask, what's pricing like to work with you? It varies depending on kind of what we're doing. I don't know that I want to get into specifics on the webinar, but I'm more than happy to talk about that with anybody that would like to know and show you the full gambit of what we can do. And also, I don't want somebody to watch this a year from now after our pricing has changed and be like, it said on the webinar a year ago. Oh, well, we can always stipulate that, it's Tuesday, October 9th, 2018. Whatever the price is beyond today is outside of my control.
Sure.
I will say that I know that you've made some new pricing, which makes your services much more attainable for, I'll call them smaller MSPs that might only have, 100 or a couple hundred agents.
It is particularly advantageous for people that are under 500 agents. It's scalable kind of with where you are. And as you grow, the complexity of what you need grows. Like, I have a client with, 300 agents, and we're fixing a lot of fundamental stuff, whereas we have a client I was working with this morning that has closer to 5,000 agents, and I'm doing just full-blown custom tables in the database, data view, like let's really get some granular information going on here, because they need that, So it tends to stay commensurate with sort of where you are, but from a pricing standpoint, it's definitely the best value for people that are under 500 agents, because you get a lot for not as much money as, some of the bigger stuff.
Let me see here. And I'm just sending a private message here to someone. And with that said, we also have a deal available to members of MSP webinars that they can take advantage of for the projects. I don't know how that works for the smaller MSPs.
I thought about that, and much like with the managed services that you guys offer people, there's an onboarding phase, kind of like when you bring on a new client. So basically, the discount associated with MSP webinars can be applicable towards the project or the initial onboarding, but will not make adjustments to the regular monthly thing. If we have a recurring monthly deal going on, then that'll just be what it is, because that's there's math involved in that. But the project as a standalone thing or the onboarding phase of an ongoing thing, we can apply the MSP webinars discount to either of those.
Excellent. Well, does anyone else have any questions? Ed, I see a long question here, so I don't know if we answered this one for you or not. You asked what was the first program or service that Brian was talking about that triggered this whole thing from the end user. That's Desk Director. So I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, what it is the thing that I didn't have. You can trigger it from the Desk Director web portal. However, if you don't have there's two versions of Desk Director. There's the just web portal, and then there's the web portal and an installed desktop client that's like right there on their desktop. When you have the installed desktop client, it does a very important thing, and that is it automatically attaches the configuration. It attaches that machine to that ticket on the way in. If you don't have that, then what you have to do is you have to go over to the ticket and you have to select the machine that this is applicable to, which is obviously a manual step. So I like having the Desk Director desktop client because it eliminates the need for that step. And obviously through the power of Automate, you can deploy it I actually just built a full-blown deployment for Desk Director for somebody last week.
Now, what if we didn't have Manage? We have Automate, but we don't have Manage. Are you still able to somehow remotely trigger a script?
Yeah, you can. You can do it. It's just not as clean. Like what you can do is you actually to your. Let me share my screen. I almost forgot again. What you can do is you can actually attach menu items to the agent menu down here, and you can trigger scripts from that. But just in my experience, it's just not very user friendly, and ultimately people just pretend like it doesn't exist and shoot you an email. So you can trigger scripts from down here, and you have to go into the template and you have to add menu items and associate those with scripts and all of that good stuff. And it's just not as clean of a process, and it's difficult to get people to use it is the thing. Because, it's down here just kind of out of sight, out of mind. Whereas, like I've made it clear to all of our ongoing clients that, Desk Director is how you get us. That's if you need to submit a thing, then that's the way you need to do it. And like in our regular email that goes out for any new ticket or any ticket update, it very clearly says in every single email you get from us, if you're not using our support portal, you should be. Here's how you get to it. Here's some instructions. Cool. Get in there. So it's about really routing people through it, but it's pretty user friendly. But getting people to like come down here and expand this and then click on this and find a little menu and then navigate to the one that's all Chrome, it's just hard to get people to do that. Doable, but hard to get people to do it.
Sure. Someone put something in the chat. One thought that comes to mind to keep this simple and not have to use Desk Director is to allow users to set the state for a computer via a GUI on their desktop, or even have them click on a shortcut that links to a script that adds a code to a text file. Lab Tech could then monitor that text file and take an action based on the auto group script combinations. For instance, a series of shortcuts in a folder on the desktop, install Chrome, Firefox, etc. I mean, you could do that, but that is like that is the most inelegant, janky method I've ever heard of. Just spend money on Desk Director. Use gravity forms. Just use the icon on the desktop. I'm sorry, icon in the system tray. Don't clutter up people's desktops. Sorry, Sean, I don't mean to be harsh, but.
Well, actually, and I'll be the devil's advocate here. I like all of that. I think that the methodology here is a bit, not sure the word I'm looking for. Like, it's probably not the way I would do it because there's so many steps involved and so many points of failure, and somebody's got to do it just right and that sort of thing. But I like the fact that he said it, because really the whole purpose of this webinar is to, not everybody's going to have Automate, Manage, and Desk Director. The purpose of this webinar is to get people to think about it in terms of that all automation and AI really is at this point is just clever integrations between systems that are seamless to the end user. There might be 1,000 steps happening in the back end, but to the end user, there's one. I asked for it. How the specifics of how you make that happen aren't. I mean, obviously it's important because you want consistency and you want it to be successful. But if you can come up with another way of doing it, then by all means come up with another way of doing it. There's a lot of different possibilities. This is just what I've found to be the cleanest and the most cost saving one, because you also got to keep in mind that like Desk Director, without the desktop client version, it's like $97 a month to start. And I think with the desktop, it's maybe a couple hundred. And if you look at the time that you would have to put into maintaining, text files and those kind of things and that sort of thing, it may be that you find that it just makes sense to go ahead and get Desk Director. Just because your time is worth money also. And I'm not trying to ask you how much you're spending on all your stuff. So what we just saw from you is the web portal version of Desk Director, which you can get for just shy of $100. $97. $97 a month is what I pay for that.
Is there a limit on the number of we'll call them end users?
Yeah, it's good for up to 3,000 contacts.
Only 3,000? For most of us here, that's plenty.
Yeah, and there's add-ons like I think for another, $50 or $60 or something like that, you can do a dedicated domain. Like you'll notice mine is comprehensivemsp.deskdirector.com. Just wasn't super important to me for it to be branded with its own FQDN. And then the only other thing that I really would definitely recommend if you intend to use it this way is to get the desktop client version, because it attaches that configuration, and that that automation is not going to fire off. It won't know where to apply it. You can manually do it, but spend a little bit more money and you won't have to do that anymore. Then folks are installing stuff for themselves in the middle of the night.
Well, I will say that I didn't realize it was that cost effective for that number of. I know that
really not that bad.
Some competitors to Desk Director will say, "Oh, well, you need to have an application on the desktop, and you need to build this whole experience, and blah blah blah." I don't remember Desk Director's web portal looking that sharp, so I feel like maybe that's come a long way. That's something I would I would say is worth looking into to see if the desktop component is not sucky. That would.
No, you know what? I've seen it. Like I've got clients that we support that have it, that have the desktop one, and I mean it's more or less the same thing. It's fine, really. and all it is just there's you can brand it and label it whatever you want, and there'll just be an icon here that says, detailer or fix your stuff, and you can click on it, and it'll open up. And but like I said, and also with that, you still have the web portal version. But the most valuable thing, as I mentioned, is that it's able to identify what machine this request came from.
Awesome.
Which is very helpful.
This was really cool today, Brian. I really appreciate you doing this. And I was serious. I want to get you back. I want to talk about some other cool things with, like, server management for automate and manage, if you know how to do that. Or if you have someone that does that, maybe bring them too. There's just
actually, I think what I'm about to put together, you mentioned earlier, like maintenance and sort of fine tuning the server. And I think what I'm actually, what I've really taken to do, what I've taken to doing a lot lately is sort of going inception with it. And I'm automate itself. Like, I've been turning automate back in on itself and having it maintain itself. So, so what I'm about to do is I'm going to put together a maintenance process. I'm going to get a maintenance process together that perhaps I could distribute to, clear out your ticket tables, look for big tables, do some assessment, that kind of stuff, that maybe I can just automate some of that stuff. Maybe I'll distribute something like that here in the near future.
Well, very cool. Hey, thanks again for being on here, Brian. I appreciate it very much. Again, for those of you that you like what you see on these free webinars like today's, there's a lot more great content and resources available to members of MSP Webinars. If you want to join, all you got to do is go to mspwebinars.com. Thanks so much for stopping by today, guys. I hope you all have a great day. Take care.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah.
Real quick, before you end it, can I answer one question I saw here?
Sure.
Well, it was just a question that says, "What's the best way to get a hold of Brian?" I felt compelled. I felt compelled to answer that question. You know what? If you just want to go to comprehensivemsp.com, there is an engage here, and just shooting over this. We just ask for basic info, and you can shoot it over. That's the best way, and then I can reach out to you.
Perfect. All right. Thanks so much, guys. You all have yourselves a great day.